sisters, and welcome to another edition of With One Accord's Treasure Guardian series, where we help equip the body of Moshiach to do more and more effectively the mission that the Almighty has given us. Today, we find a lot of people are concerned about how dangerous it is out there in the world, both physically and spiritually. They're worried about their children. They're worried about their families. There's just so much out there to worry about, especially in a spiritual level, because believe me, the spiritual realm is more dangerous than anything in the physical realm. Our Master warned us, don't be afraid of them that can kill the body, but rather fear them that can kill the soul and cast the soul into hell. So to protect yourself spiritually, quite a few Christians already know about this, but many do not, and many don't avail themselves of it, and that is the full armor of Yahuwah. And it's found in a small condensed form in Ephesians chapter 6. And so that's what we're going to start with, but then we're going to expand upon that from the perspective of the Tenakh, of the Old Testament. Okay, in Ephesians 6, we read starting in verse 10. Finally, my brethren, be strong in Yahuwah and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of Elohim, that you might be able to withstand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore, taking unto you the whole armor of Elohim, that you might be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girded about with truth, having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod to the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith you shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, and take the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of Elohim, praying always with all supplication in the Spirit, and watching thereunto with all perseverance and supplication for all saints. Okay, now, again, that passage is relatively well known, but I would submit to you probably not as well practiced as we could wish. And here's the thing, brethren. The problem is if you go out into the world, into the day-to-day life, whether it's to a job or to do errands or whatever that might be, you're walking away from your house, which should be your spiritual sanctuary, and out into the world where there's a lot of wickedness. Even in places like, everybody says, oh, well, America's a Christian country. Well, it's not so much as it used to be. And because of that, you will see the demonic in many forms, in many places. And if you go out without putting on your armor, basically you're walking around spiritually naked. And if you allow your children to go out without putting on their armor, you're letting them walk around spiritually naked. And that's not a good idea, because the demonic is in a lot of places. I mean, sometimes people accuse us of finding a demon under every bush, and that isn't really the case. In fact, I've never found a demon under a bush, but I've found them in a lot of other places. It's not just over in Africa that has the demonic. It's also right here, right now, in any city that you're in. And with many, many people, even many Christians, have this issue. But here's a larger point. People think that this is okay. This is like a teaching from Paul about, like, okay, Roman soldiers have this armor, and this is what they wore, and he's kind of making into a spiritual metaphor. But you got to remember something. The Jewish people in that day did not like Rome. I mean, no way did they like Rome. In fact, hardly anybody back then liked Rome. Rome was an oppressive, dictatorial empire. And Paul was writing to the Ephesians at that point, which were a conquered people. They're part of what today we call Turkey. And essentially, they were a conquered, subjugated people just like Judea was. And so they didn't like Rome. I would submit to you that instead, Paul was referencing the same teachings about the armor that are in the Tenakh, in the Old Testament. And I'm going to take you through that and show you how much more there is that you can avail for you, your family, your church, and your community at large. So, let's just go through this in a brief. There's a whole teaching that we have on this. It's part of the video, Resisting Unto Blood. This is a brief version. I just want to let you know these things are out there. These tools, these weapons. People often say, "Oh, the sword of the Spirit is our only weapon." All the other weapons in the armor are defensive. Well, that isn't really true, as you're going to see. So in any event, we just read about this, the girdle of truth, the breastplate of righteousness, the sandals of the gospel of peace, the helmet of salvation, and then we're going to come to some different ones. If you go to 1 Thessalonians 5:8, you will find the advice to put on the breastplate of faith and love. And that's just as important as the ones that are in Ephesians chapter 6. Then we have, in a different place, the garment of vengeance, the cloak of zeal, and the armor of light. That's another New Testament one, but the garment of vengeance and the cloak of zeal are from Isaiah. And the armor of light, I just want to talk about this for a moment. This is one of the most critical parts of the armor, because when you put on this armor every day, it kind of like empowers all the rest of the parts of the armor. And this is something the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, has shown us in the last few years. This isn't in Blood on the Doorpost, but it will, of course, be discussed in the sequel book we're writing now. But in the meantime, understand this. The armor of light flows through you. It like gives you, like you have a spiritual nuclear reactor inside of you that gives you the power to live a victorious life, to have victory over sin, to have victory over bondage, and to just walk in a way that the Almighty wants you to walk. And that armor of light is in the book of Romans, chapter 13, verse 12. The armor of light. I tell people it turns your regular old suit of armor, like you might see in a museum, into like the Iron Man suit of armor, like the comic book character, because that armor, it was not only defensive, it gave him power to be strong. It gave him like jets that he could fly with. I'm not saying that the armor of light's going to do that, but the point is it's going to give you the power to live a mighty and victorious life in Moshiach. Okay, then we have another one that's not in the book of Ephesians. It's in Psalm 18:35, the shield of salvation. Now, what does that mean? Well, that basically means, and let me share this one thing about this, is that the word salvation in Hebrew is Yeshua. So this is related to his name, because his name is Yahushua. And Yahushua in Hebrew means Yah is salvation. So Yeshua, here, the shield of Yeshua, it's like you're having his salvation, the knowledge that you are saved, as part of your fortifications, as part of your shield to deflect the fiery darts of the enemy. Then we have the girdle of righteousness around our loins. We have the girdle of faith around our reins. Now that's in Isaiah 11 verse 5. Now what does that mean? Well, our loins, in the King James Bible, loins are a reference basically to our reproductive organs. And of course we understand that many times people get into trouble because of sexual drives and sexual desires that are not properly channeled into marriage. And because of that, they end up falling into temptation and falling in sometimes into very grievous sin. So by putting on this girdle of righteousness, and what is righteousness? Righteousness is walking in accord with the way Abba Father and Yahushua want us to walk. We can be protected from that kind of sexual temptation, which Yah only knows is really out there today. I mean, with all whether it's billboards or whether it's television, stuff like that, there's just so much unrighteousness out there that even if you walk down the street or you drive down the street, you know, there it is. And it's unfortunate, but there it is. This will help protect you. Then you have the girdle of faith around our reins. Now, you'll find if you do a study on it, the word reins, it doesn't mean like, you know, what you have on a horse. The word reins refers to your viscera, your vital organs like your kidneys, your liver, things like that. And what this basically means is this is your faith, again, to cling to Abba, to cling to Yahushua, to have the power to walk even when things are going not well, because we know we all have days that are challenging for us. So that's part of what the idea of the girdle of faith is. Because remember, when we say girdle today, we kind of think of it like, oh, that's something women wear, to, like appear not to be quite so heavy. But actually, in this day and age, the girdle would strengthen you. It's kind of like you see that you'll even see today. You'll see men that or women that work in warehouses, or even in some of these big box stores. They'll wear these things around their waist that support their lower back. It makes you stronger. Well, these parts of the armor make you stronger and make you more able to do combat against the forces of darkness. Okay, then we have the robe of righteousness. That's Isaiah 61:10. That covers you all over. Just like if you think about it, a robe pretty much covers your entire body, and it protects you with not your righteousness, but the righteousness of Moshiach. Then we have, and here's another new one, the large shield of favor. That's in Psalm 5:12, which is this huge shield that is all around us, that protects us. I tell people it's kind of like a spiritual tank, that if you ask Abba to give it to you every day, it is there around you as you walk and go about your daily tasks. Then we have an offensive weapon, a new one probably for most of you, the glittering spear of Yahuwah. That is a very powerful thing, because if you think about it, a sword is powerful, or at least it was back in those days. Nowadays, of course, we've kind of gone on to, guns and so on. But back then, it was a very powerful weapon. But spears are more long range. So you have the spear of Yahuwah. You have the shield of faith, which is familiar to you because, of course, it's in the Ephesians passage. But then we have the rod of strength. That's in Psalm 110:2. And then we have the battle axe of Yahuwah. And that's a very powerful weapon. That's found in Jeremiah 51:20. We use the large shield and the buckler of truth. Again, a larger shield. And then, of course, the sword of the Spirit, the word of Yahuwah. And that is all of the armor that, at least so far, we have been able to discover out of the Bible. And I would point out to you that almost all of these things are from the Torah, they're from the prophets, they're from the Psalms. And again, by digging our roots deep into the foundational scriptures, which is what all the disciples in the days of Yahushua were studying. They were studying the Torah, they were studying the prophets, they were studying the Psalms. There was no New Testament at that time. We have forgotten that, and I'm encouraging all of you to dig your roots deep into these Old Testament passages and these Old Testament weapons, because they're mighty unto Yahuwah for the power of salvation in your life. Brethren, if you're being blessed by these things, we are very pleased to know that. We'd ask you to please subscribe to our video and to pray for us and to share the video with people you know that might be blessed by it. And please pray about, contributing and supporting our ministry at withoneaccord.org. Thank you, and have a blessed day. Shalom.